Great, thank you everyone for being here today. Really glad to spend some time with you today. Looking forward to a great session today. So, as mentioned, the title of the session today is Automation Playbook, Picking the Right People, Processes, Partners, and Implementation Strategies. And how are we going to do that? We're going to identify inefficiencies that are ripe for automation across your legal departments. We're going to look for what to look for in a technology partner. We're going to assemble the right task force for you to buy in adoption, including how to manage that task force, how to manage the stakeholders that are going to be involved in your projects. And then we're going to talk about several really interesting and peer-proven workflows that make for quick wins in your organizations. Great. So maybe a quick hands, we could just reply in chat or Q&A. What stage of legal automation are you in? Doing everything manually? Oh, perfect, it's come online. Just go ahead and take a minute and take a selection. All right, let's wait 5 more seconds and all right, good. Can we close the poll? Great. Results. People, number one, we have some automation built in existing systems. Great. So a lot of people already starting. That's great. Number two was I do everything manually via email, spreadsheets, etc. All right. Well, those, I hope we can convince you there's a better way to do that today. Some people are already using automation tools like that. Fantastic. Hopefully I can give you some best practices to move you to the next level. And help, I don't know where I am. Fine. Everyone started someplace. We're definitely going to be able to help you. We've some interesting content for wherever you are in that journey today. Right. What are some of the areas that we find legal inefficiency? So, especially for those of you who are just starting or maybe are just using kind of current systems to do some basic workflow, areas that you should be really suspicious that you can really make a big impact to your organization are any manual processes, wherever there's communication gaps, especially happening between departments. Whenever you see one department saying, oh, that department over there never does what they're supposed to do, that for sure, you're getting some inefficiencies there. Siloed information, we heard a little bit about that at the last panel where people are keeping technology siloed from the legal folks and legal folks are keeping the law siloed from the tech folks. Whenever we get siloed information, we're going to have problems. Regulatory complexity faces all of us now. I mean, my friends in banking and pharma and insurance really have a tough go of that, but all of us have increasing regulatory complexity right now. Over-reliance on outside counsel, where we're going to them for everything. Limited access to data and analytics. The more that we surface data and analytics and use them to help making our decision driving, the better off we're going to be. I've had the good fortune of gotten to meet with hundreds of the most interesting legal departments in the world in my role here at Mitratech'sExecutive, and I don't think I've spoken to anyone that didn't feel like they're resource constrained. So I believe that's almost universal right now. Inadequate knowledge management. If you don't have an active program on that, for sure you could be doing better there. What are some areas that workflow really helps us? Anything that's high volume and repetitive process with predictable variations. That's a fancy way to say things that happen all the time that really well established, but we keep doing them manually every time. Think of NDAs would be a really typical example. Work intake requests into a legal department, all of those things. Next one, email approval chains. Email is the #1 workflow tool in the world and simultaneously the worst workflow tool in the world. It really makes for an awful process. Whenever you see email in a process, you should be specific. You should be really suspicious that you can do this better. Anytime you're seeing data tracked in spreadsheets, that's just an awful thing for people to have to be doing. Persistent data gathering, checklist driven. Why have a checklist that humans are checking off when automation can automatically guide a process, getting the right information to the right person at the right time, freeing up human capacity. And anything where next steps are predetermined. So when this happens, then this happens, and maybe at the same time this happens, and then and now we end it with an e-signature or something. I love the stat on the right. 66% of organizations are providing solutions to automate at least one business process. That's great. That means that people are, this is well established. This is working for a wide range of companies. You can see over on the left there. And it's a growing concept. So for those of you who are feeling like you're a fair amount of percentage of our poll participants were just getting started or hadn't done too much yet, this is a really good indication that it works. And it works really well for a wide range of companies, and it's a growing trend. I might also argue, if you're not doing it and your competitors are, then you're actively falling behind. So it's a good justification to be spending some time on it, learning something about it like you are today, and then figuring out how to do it better for those of you already started. A little bit on tool selection. As you learn about workflow and you identify some processes, which we're going to talk about in the future, at some point you're going to want to start to look at some tools, and I definitely recommend talking to your peers, find out what's working well and what's not, and then taking some demos from vendors, all of those things. I think there's a couple things that you want to make sure that you're looking for. Number one, you want to see if it's made for developers or IT. The more that we distribute the work of creating workflows and making them super easy for a paralegal, a business analyst, a person in legal operations to create an updated workflow, you go from workflows developing in a complex IT tool where it might take months or quarters to make changes to a workflow, add fields to a workflow. I think all of us know about that from our legacy systems. That changes to going to hours and days where you're making substantial changes to workflows. And that pace and that speed is very important to all of our businesses today because change is happening faster and faster. I'd be really suspicious about technologies not integrated with other legal technology, like your contract lifecycle management software, your matter management software, the systems that your people are already using. You don't want people doing, unnatural acts where I type it over here, then I type it over here, then I copy and paste it over here. You want to get that integrated experience so people are much more adept to use the tool, adopt the tool, and you're actually getting the outcomes that you want. Make sure it doesn't have one size fits most features. Make sure it's doing things like document generation, e-signature, audit trails, permissions, the things that are going to come up repeatedly in legal workflow. Make sure it allows you to collaborate with your customers, your vendors, your third parties, something that makes it very easy to extend the work. As you get really good at workflow, you're going to find more and more places to spend it. Make sure that your audience that you can extend the tool to isn't limited. And pay attention to how it's priced so that it can scale as your business grows or your need for workflow grows. So you want it to be flexible, mold to your processes. You can do anything with it. You want it to be no code. That's just saying that you don't need to know Java or C# or anything like that. You don't want to have to hire technical people to make changes to your workflow. You want something very quick and adaptable. And you want that because it's faster. You want something scalable and undisruptive. That means you can make the screens look like people are used to. You can use the nomenclature in your company. Every company has their own nomenclature of what they call things. And you want to make that sort of you want the tool to be unintrusive, really obvious and intuitive to the users. You don't want to have to retrain them on a whole bunch of different terminology. You want to use their terminology and make it easy as possible. Okay, so once you've done that, how do you get, people around you in your organization? So you've taken a look, you've learned something about workflow, you've got some ideas, you saw, oh, we're doing this in email, that's no good. We can do better. And you've gotten some idea about what you want out of a tool. What can you do to people around you to get them influenced and excited about workflow? And this isn't just for workflow, this is actually any change management. So you want to identify and prioritize the people around you, like saying, who do I really need to convince? Probably you're going to have to convince somebody in finance because you're going to have to pay for this. You're going to have to pay, convince your boss. You're going to have to, convince several of the stakeholders that are using it, both super users and the people that they report to, so everyone understands what you're trying to do. Start to understand their needs, expectations, requirements. This isn't a detailed requirements gathering, but more high level, like make sure that, they're going to say things like, I want it to be easy, I want it to be intuitive, I want it to be, if I need to make changes, I can, I want to get some reporting, things like that. And you want to get those early on so that as you deliver them later, or your team delivers them later, you can say, oh, look, remember you asked me for these things? This is what that looks like now. Communicate effectively. Honestly, this is one that I have not done, and I've made mistakes on this one. You want to communicate a lot more than you think you need to, and you need to communicate a lot of different ways. Some people, you're going to want to talk to, you're going to either walk over the office, Zoom with them. Some people are going to respond well to email, some people in Teams. You might need to do a webinar, you might want to do a video, you might talk about in your department town hall. Make sure that you're talking to people in a variety of different ways. Everyone learns differently, and the more you do it, the more successful you're going to be. Manage expectations, build relationships and trust. As you're working with people delivering the solution, their workflow solution, especially the first couple of times, especially for those of you who haven't started or haven't really gone down this path yet, you want to build that relationship and trust together as you're working on the product together. It makes every project's going to have some bumps in the road. When you have that relationship and trust, it makes it easier. Involve stakeholders in decision making. That would be really good for things like which workflows are going to work on first, which part of which workflows we're going to do. If you have a complex process, you're not going to do all of it at once. We're going to work on this part first. We're going to work on NDAs in North America first. Then we're going to do NDAs in Europe, and then we're going to do the rest of the world. Make sure people are involved in decision making so they feel that they have a stake in what you're doing. There are always going to be bumps in the road, so anticipate them. Don't be surprised. Keep the conflicts in public. Nothing needs to be secret. Provide lots of training and support, making sure, again, to touch people in different ways. So it could be emails, it could be videos, it could be some in person or open hours and Zoom. All of those things make it much more effective, and keep engaging and seeking feedback. And if you're working on all these things actively about assembling your task force and getting people actively involved in your project, it makes the hardest part of adopting new technology is changing people's behavior. So this is a very deliberate and very thoughtful way to get everyone on board to change their behavior to make it very likely that your solution is going to be great. What are some of the most popular ones we see from our customer base, the TAP community? Legal service requests, so that's people taking in a request from the rest of the business. So instead of calling somebody or sending in an email, which has just tons of problems with it, you can't get any tracking, you can't get any self-service, you get bad inputs where people don't tell you what they really need. A legal front door eliminates all of those problems, makes actually getting legal information to your business partners much faster. Coverage opinions for our insurance clients, incident report workflows for anyone in compliance, invoice submission portal for people who are using manual invoice submission, contracts portal, people have an easy way to go look for contracts, request contracts, risk assessment, very easy way to go and collect a wide range of data from a lot of different people and bring them back in an automated way instead of doing that in emails and spreadsheets. Non-disclosure agreements are virtually no-brainer now. If you're still doing NDAs, if you're still negotiating NDAs, I strongly recommend you take a look at what best in class looks like now. People are getting NDAs done in an hour instead of a month. And if you're still doing it manually negotiating each one, your peers are ahead of you. Contract approval, signature request, customer information access, and legal compliance task. I like the quote on the bottom. I'm not going to read it out loud, but it's fantastic how people are using it and getting value so quickly. We're going to talk about both of these examples in a minute, but what I want you to notice on this slide is they use different nomenclature, they have different branding, they look different for the different companies, and that's really important, what I was mentioning before, to make this look very much like what your people are used to in their current environments. So getting that branding right, that look and feel right, and the nomenclature way makes adoption a lot easier and gets you to that ROI very quick. Let's go through a couple particular examples here. And the first one is from Friends of Capital One. They had a corporate capital digital diligence portal. And that circle on the left there is really the most important thing to note on the slide, or one of the most important things to note on the slide. The Google form took 5 to 20 hours of people time, and they reduced it to an hour and a half. Now think about if you were that person spending 20 hours on corporate capital diligence, and it went from 20 hours, half a work week for a lot of folks, down to an hour and a half. Think about how much more you could be doing. Think about how much more value that person can do to your organization. How much easier and faster it is. They can change things in days and not months, and they're able to solve problems very quickly. And that last quote on the bottom from Brooke, we're TAP badge of honor. We're TAP is a badge of honor. Tech consultant, but at other times a TAP creative manager. I build all these fun workflows to help teams reach their goals. So it's not helping teams reach their goals, helping your team reach their goals is exciting. Freeing up capacity for people to do more things is exciting. Great. Next one is example from Bath and Body Works. Over on the left there, Julie reduced administrative hours by 80%. That is another just huge example for people. Think about what that does to somebody's work week. When you can get rid of something, administrative tasks, very few people really enjoy doing it. I know better to never say never, but a repetitive administrative tasks are not the most fun part of most people's jobs. Imagine you could come in and help people in your department reduce that by 80%. Absolutely fantastic. I like some of Julie's quotes on the side there too. A whole list of workflow ideas, the opportunities analyst. And it was really fantastic how fast they got to value on this project too. After contracting, they went live in 2 weeks. Contrast that to some of the other large technology projects you've done in the past, where it might have been, if it was 2 months, I'll be impressed, but it's 2 months, 12 months, 2 years is not unusual for some cases. And she was alive and reducing administrative hours by 80% in 2 weeks. Really fantastic story. Next story from our friends at Rubrik. They had their workflows live in 28 days. Another example of people just getting things up and transforming their business processes very quickly. Rubrik wanted an easier way to manage the end-to-end service requests because they were scaling, and they used workflow as they rolled it out to determine where to invest. So because they had a really clear idea of the work that was coming into the legal department in different regions or different practice areas, because they had a very good idea of what that work was coming in and they were able to measure it and show it, they knew exactly where they actually needed more humans. If you ask people in a department who needs more, everyone raises their hand, everyone's busy, and everyone rightfully thinks they need more. This company used workflow to say, oh, here's exactly where we do need to scale. These are the most urgent issues, and here's why. Compare that to what you may be doing in your own company, where it's who makes the best argument, who the boss likes the best, whatever decision-making criteria happens in your company. It was fantastic they used TAP and they used data to make those decisions. Just a couple examples actually show you what the tool looks like. Over on the left there, these are workflows that are very basic. We go from one step straight to another. Over to the right, this is much more complicated. We get a request going. It's parallel processing by all these people at once. Oh, I'm sorry. Parallel processing by all these people at once. And then as each of them do their tasks, they're doing them all at the same time. It comes back and gets all of that data gets coalesced, and then it has a straight path through the end of the process. Think about what this process would look like if you were in email. What that chain would look like. There'd probably be 200 people on the CC there, and nobody would have any idea what's going on. Workflow orchestrates all of that. Everyone only sees the bit of information that they need, and then it flows on to final approval at the end. Excellent. So those are the slides I want to say. If you want to, we've got a QR code for you. If you want to scan to learn more about legal automation over on the left. My email, I'm glad to hear from you. My LinkedIn and our website on the right. If you've some questions, I'd love to take them now. If not, and you think of them later, I'd be glad to take an email later.